Now, with named sets and a TV series and better set designs, we're ready to rock and roll. Well, it happened. Once again, after 2 short years, Bionicle has been cancelled. Once again, we have to go through the pain of loss. I mean, Bionicle was ready to rock and roll, and it all came crashing down this July, out of nowhere, right out of the effing blue. Honestly, writing my notes to make this video was pretty hard. I mean, all videos have their fair share of difficulties, whether it be writing or recording or even editing. But here I find it especially difficult to find words that hadn't been said already, whether it's been on Facebook posts or on YouTube videos. Also, this news came at a pretty heavy time in my life. You may remember me talking about that film I was making. Well, in July, I met up with some people who had provided the budget for this film. And long story short, it was too expensive to be acceptable. So for now, I hate to say that Finding Tristan is shelved indefinitely. As for Bionicle, did it end well this time? In short, no. In fact, we thought 2010 was rushed. This literally just stopped at the end of the Netflix series. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the ending with the goddamn Bionicle stars was a more balanced and nuanced ending. But why? Why did it fail? What I personally know from watching the videos of other Bionicle fans is that this time the toy line wasn't selling very well, and I don't mean just mediocrely. Apparently, the sales were tanking. What we all know is that up to this wave, Bionicle toys have been pretty much everywhere, even in the local Barnes & Noble. This summer wave, on the other hand, was only sold at Toys R Us and Lego stores, and according to Lego's official announcement, will not reach Asia and the Pacific regions. They literally were not trying to save the theme from Cancellation. Of course, this is upsetting news to us all, especially when you take in NikonAquaMagna's words about the poor sales. To quote him,
"If LEGO tries to put together a Generation 3 now, or at any point in the near future, these store owners aren't going to look back at G1 because it sold great at first. They're going to go by the most recent and most reliable data to judge how successful they can reasonably expect another revival to be. They'll look at whatever LEGO's selling them and think, yeah, sure, because it worked out so well last time, right? Get that swag out of here."
If this is true, then the chances of Bionicle's second return are very, very slim. Close to almost zero, and I'm not just talking about the immediate perspective, like for example say Bionicle were resumed in the next year or two. I'm talking about the big picture. Basically, if Bionicle wasn't selling over these past 2 years, then the distributors such as Walmart, Target, and a ton of bigger and lesser stores are less likely to accept a rerun of Bionicle even within the next decade or so. Despite this, LEGO clearly understands how important Bionicle is to their brand, so that should be good. But at least they did a good job with the brand we got, right? Well, let's take an honest look at what we got. Back in the glorious days when the reboot had been announced 2 years ago, the first preview of Bionicle harkened us back to the good old days, back when Bionicle was tribal, mysterious, and had an ethereal quality, which turned out to be all but missing this time.
"I feel amazing powers. I can even hear sounds from far away."
Set-wise, they did a good job in bringing back the old look, especially with Master Kabaka's mask, but the story was pretty much a mixed bag. The setting of Okoto and the villagers made a nice harken back to Matanui and the Matoran. This, combined with the quest for the golden masks, worked well for nostalgic reasons, but the way it was executed was incredibly simplistic. I mean, Protector of Fire, Protector of Water, Mask of Fire, Golden Mask of Fire? These are all just basic names of which a 3-year-old could memorize. compared to G1 with clearly defined, cool sounding names such as the Kanohi Hao, Cow Cow, Ruru, and villagers with names such as Jala or Jaller, Hali, Onipu, Taipu, Tamaru, Vakama, and everyone else. This naming of objects and villagers and going the extra effort to give them clear and distinct personalities made the island of Motunui more real and thus made Bionicle memorable in the first place. Here, in their attempt not to repeat the mistake of G1, hereby not making it too complex in the end, they did the opposite. They made it too simple. They even repeated the same quest for this year. 2015, our toy heroes had to find 6 golden masks. This year, they had to find 6 golden masks again! I can tolerate having the same legend retold over 3 movies, but having more or less identical sets for both years is just laziness. Now I won't go into more detail over the Netflix series, that is for another video entirely. What I'm trying to say is that it seems that LEGO is focusing less on their original storylines such as Ninjago, Legend of Chima, or Bionicle, and instead focusing on their licensed themes such as Star Wars and superheroes. You know, the brands that are actually making money. Now I don't mean to diss Ninjago, for it has been accepted by several people as Bionicle's spiritual successor, with characters with personalities and an upcoming theatrical movie with big name stars. But I haven't seen much of their material, so I can't judge it completely for this video. Basically, LEGO has pretty much creatively declined when it comes to original stories. Even the most cartoony stuff back in the day, like Oriental Expedition, remember that, was far more serious in tone than the majority of story-driven lines by LEGO now. It may be a personal preference, but even the LEGO movie from a few years back had its pretty grim moments. So why is LEGO producing squeaky clean, simplistic storylines for their original products? That's what I want to know. With Bionicle, it was this year, which was showing some promise, but apparently, since all they care about is how much money they're making, LEGO saw Bionicle's less than stellar sales and pulled the plug just before it was about to get good. Dick move, LEGO. Dick move. And honestly, some of the blame has to go to the fans, especially those who hate the line because it uses the CCBS system, which was created for Hero Factory, as you may remember. While we can agree that Hero Factory was definitely a lesser brand, the fact that Bionicle this time round used some parts from Hero Factory in their sets is no excuse for hating this time. In fact, Bionicle originally used parts from previous lines well over 10 years ago. In other words, what the are you actual Bionicle fans? Or are you a group of easily butthurt snobs? Despite all this, nothing changes about how I feel deep down about this theme. To say that I am a huge fan of the LEGO toy line Bionicle back during my Mask of Light review was an understatement of the biggest proportions. The whole experience of playing with the Bionicle sets and reading the story as it went on through comic books and online games practically spawned the man I am now. My whole personal culture, with its interest in Japanese and Pacific cultures, have their roots in Bionicle, which in turn spurred my interest in the films of Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, such as Seven Samurai and Rashomon, and anime as well, and that pretty much caused me to have such a vast knowledge of film I do now, which has grown beyond Japanese cinema and has led me to some characters and films which have had titanic impacts upon me forever. Even the Bionicle movies themselves, of which I have reviewed 3 years prior, they still have a cheesy charm to them which probably led me to campy films such as Riccio, the films by Alejandro Jodorowsky such as The Holy Mountain, to the films by Trauma Entertainment including The Toxic Avenger, and even Doctor Who. And look what my interest in those films has led me. The Motunui online game itself, to this day, is still the gold standard, not just of Bionicle, but of everything that was involved in its making, from gameplay to storyline, filled with pulse-pounding action scenes and tender drama. Nothing has aged. The stories of these Toa fighting against the oppressive spirit of darkness are the very backbone of my moral compass, growing from blind obedience to authority to strong-willed warriors fighting for freedom and justice against corrupt and terrifying monsters. It all goes back to my experience of playing Bionicle as a sensitive little boy who was so afraid of the silent darkness that he slept with new age and electronic music playing, again, which was spurred on by the musical score by Justin Litcher, of which I still gladly listen to today, and will probably will till the end of my days. For all of you saddened by the loss of Bionicle, I have to bring up the words of a man whose work I've covered last year in July Dorowski.
In the life, things come, you say yes. Things go away, you say yes.
As for me, I see a lot of opportunities in the immediate future, both Bionicle speaking and professionally speaking. On the bright side, this sudden end of Bionicle had me going back to some of my old creations made from back then. You know those models that appeared in a lot of my first videos on YouTube between 2008 and 2011, give or take? Well, it has been nearly 10 years since I made these figures, and I barely have changed them. Back then, I have developed a dark and edgy storyline which takes place after the Makuta took over the Motunui robot involving these very characters. But I put it on the back burner due to various things such as college obligations, their custom Bionicle Wikipedia pages being deleted on a regular basis, and the new wave of Bionicle coming in. Now with that wave's cancellation, why not finally kickstart Bionicle, the final legend? After 8 long years of development hell, it's about time.